Hey, it's actually working. Cool. And we are live, ladies and gentlemen. Scotty Z here again in your home, wherever you are, sending lots of love. Today's episode of Awaken Freedom is one that I am more than excited about. We are joined with a dear friend. And I don't know if Claire wanted me to say this, but Claire is actually a past lover of mine, more than a lover, someone that I still love today, but a relationship from many, many years ago, who I'm deeply in love with this woman, even though I'm married and have a son. She didn't know that I was going to say all of that, but I love this woman like a sister. And we do go back a long way. And I'm just so grateful to have this conversation with you, Claire. I've seen you grow over so many years and into the woman that you are today, serving the people the way that you are. Today's episode, we're going to be diving into Claire's profession and what you've been doing, I think, for 7 years now. How long have you been working with trauma?
Yeah, about 7 years. Yeah.
About 7 years. There you go. So I'm keeping an eye. About 7 years, Claire has been working with people with trauma, literally trauma, PTSD trauma. And I think today this is a subject that we need to talk more about. And you guys know at Awaken Freedom, we talk about the things that most people aren't going to talk about. We need to have this discussion. I think it's something that we need to really bring light to, that it's not just being covered up, or it's something that, you know, this whole depression, trauma, and PTSD, I think it is something that we need to be aware of in our society, especially what's happened over the last couple of years. And so in today's episode, we're going to dive into that with Claire and probably some other fun stuff as well. Claire, do you want to give us a little bit of an intro about the 7 years work that you've been doing? How did you get here? And what is it that you work for an organization? What organization is that? And sort of fill us in.
Thanks, Scotty, and thanks so much for having me. It's great to reconnect with you and talk about the things that we're both passionate about. I'm actually currently working in private practice. So a few months ago, I started my own practice. I'm an accredited mental health social worker, which is great. It means I can offer people rebates through Medicare and do focused psychological strategies through there. So yeah, and I also do work part-time for an NGO in domestic violence and sexual assault. So yeah, I like to, it's nice to have a bit of a foot in the community sector as well, because yeah, that's one of my passions, is serving community as well. So yeah, it was quite a journey to get here. I think we met about 11 years ago, and at that time I was a full-time musician.
Yeah.
I did undergrad in arts and law, but the law was way too straight for me. I didn't want to go that way, so I rebelled and went and played reggae for a very long time. And then, yeah, I was ready for a change. I'd always been deeply into personal development and spiritual development. And then my journey led me to work for a really amazing NGO here in Australia called Headspace, the National Youth Mental Health Foundation. I think I worked for them for about 6 years.
Yeah.
And while I was working there, I went and did a master's of social work, because I really wanted to get into the clinical side of social change and mental health. And then about, I think 3 years ago, I graduated as a clinical social worker, and then just went on to do continuous study. And then this year got my mental health accreditation. So yeah, in some ways I'm still quite new to this field. And then in other ways, I've sort of been in this field for a long time. So, and just learning new and more ways to, I guess, serve people and help people and help myself while I'm doing it, because every time you're learning and helping others, you're reflecting back on yourself and always becoming, I guess.
And that's who you are. Like you say, you're new to the space, meaning you just got the master's, but you know, knowing you 11 years ago and the journey that you'd taken to get to there, you've done so much work on yourself. You're constantly learning about yourself, you know, your yoga practice, your meditation practice, the inner work. And, you know, you've got your demons. I've got my demons. Our demons met each other, right?
Yeah. They're well acquainted.
They got well acquainted, but you were always working on yourself, always growing. And so it was natural that you got to that place. But why did you choose to go into like mental health specifically and trauma specifically? Like you could have been a coach or this or that or whatever is everyone sort of goes into. Why did you go deep into more the Would you call it clinical? Is that like the clinical
Yeah,
side
I
of it?
call it clinical.
Yeah.
That's a great question. And I sort of dabbled in coaching at the beginning of this sort of journey in creativity coaching, being an
I
artist
remember that time. Yep.
and that sort of thing. And then I think I read a book, a lot of people are probably familiar with, The Women Who Run with the Wolves by Clarissa Pinkola Estes. And I read that book.
Give us a comment if you've heard of it. I haven't heard of it. If you've heard of that book, ladies, give us a comment.
I read that book from cover to cover, and the author of the book, she tells a lot in traditional folk tales of her Indigenous culture, and she's also a trained psychotherapist, and very deep in this tiny font of the end of the book, she says, if you want to help people and you want to be a psychotherapist, you need to go through rigorous and supervised studies. And I remember feeling when I was sort of starting this coaching journey, I was like, I want to know more. Like, I want to know more about psychology. I want to know how to be the best therapist that I can be. And I want to go really deep with people, and I want to really understand what I'm doing. So I took a bit of it was a difficult road of studies, but I'm so glad I did it, because I've just learned so much, and there's just still so much never ending more to learn. So yeah, that's why I chose that
That's amazing you've done that, because there is the coaching industry, and even like I don't know about the therapist industry, I'm more in the coaching. Every man and his dog can be a coach. You know, you just put up a sign and now you're a coach. It's not there's no real like.
It's unregulated.
Unregulated, that's the word. Yeah, it's unregulated. Whereas you have gone to become that professional side and working with Headspace. I mean, even the name has some connotations there. 6 years with Headspace, you got your master's, now you're doing this. Tell us a little bit about this whole trauma journey. Like, what is trauma? I mean, I know that's a physical trauma, but what is a trauma psychologically, and, you know, sort of take us on that journey?
Great question. And I think there's a few different definitions of trauma. The way I understand trauma is that it's something that's happened to you when we're talking about like a mental trauma or a psychological trauma, something that's happened to you and it's been so scary or disturbing that it's overwhelming for the brain, and the brain can't use its usual ways of processing things to process it. So it stays sort of stuck in the brain, in your psychology.
Physically in the brain, or in like the mind and the psychology? Like, is there something, the neurons that are getting like fucked up?
And I'm not a neuroscientist, and
but is there research in that they're showing that there's actually like there's a block in the neural pathways?
They've done like MRIs on people. They can see where different things are firing, other things aren't firing. Then they process the trauma, and then they do another MRI, and it's completely different.
And it's free. So it's an actual physical experience, not just a psychological. It's coming from
Well, I mean, physical and psychological, are they different? It's like body mind, right?
I would say that they're different, but they're the same. It's like the in-breath and the out-breath. They're still a breath, but you can correlate them differently.
Yeah, well, I mean, where's serotonin made?
Where physically serotonin is a chemical, therefore it's made in the body, but is it triggered mentally?
It's made in the gut, right? And what
in the body?
Yeah, so in the body, and then how much does that influence our psychology?
Oh, massively so. Yeah, for sure.
So, you know, body, mind, I think they're very interconnected.
Indeed.
I guess when you break it down to the tiniest micro, like break it down as small as possible.
Yeah. But what is mind? Mind to me is a lighter substance than the physical.
Okay. Yeah, I would agree with that. Now we're getting all spiritual. Yeah.
Well, it's good to analyze these sort of things, right? But the physical is the physical, then the mind is the mind. It's like a lighter substance. Yeah. So what I was sort of meaning from that is like, do they know, and you've said yes, that there is like a block? Because I think of a trauma, like if I get a trauma on my arm, there's a physical block of blood.
Totally.
And then it's like, so there's a physical as well as, sorry.
Yeah. So for example, a more gross example, or like more obvious example would be there's evidence to show that kids who grow up in a very stressful or traumatic environment, the part of the brain which is sort of the fight or flight part of the brain, and the amygdala, it can be seen that actually grows larger because it's constantly being triggered. So that part of the brain gets larger, which then can inhibit the front of the brain and the prefrontal cortex doing its work, and sort of also growing that sort of muscle. So in that sense, it does. Trauma changes the way the brain develops. Yeah.
And so what is the work that you've been doing with trauma? So they've gone through some sort of an experience that the brain can't and the mind can't comprehend. And therefore, what is it like? It then gets stuck and it can't process it. Is that
Yeah.
sort of trauma? And
Yeah,
then
pretty much.
that
Yeah,
inhibits us in some way, whether it's the
exactly.
physical. Okay.
So when you think about post-traumatic stress disorder,
Yeah.
like the main symptoms of that are like, because it hasn't been processed, so there's like intrusive thoughts. So it might be nightmares or keep thinking about the trauma.
Hmm.
And then there'll be like an avoidance aspect. So like, I don't want to go to that place in case that thing happens again, or I don't want to see this kind of person because of that.
Mm.
There'll be persistent sort of mood disruption, anxiety or depression. And so you can, and there's one more, what is it? Under pressure. And so when they sort of, you can see how that trauma has, it's a sense of threat. So a bit of hypervigilance. So always checking, am I safe? So even though right in this moment, I'm perfectly safe, because this trauma is still sort of stuck in my brain, I'm constantly looking and expecting that it's going to happen again. And it's the same with the nightmares. It's trying to resolve itself, but it's just been unable to do that. So when I was working with Headspace, I was, so fortunate to just meet so many like young people and families coming through that organization. And, there was a lot of, I witnessed a lot of trauma in people, in young people. And I became quite frustrated, sort of not having a tool where I could help them really shift the trauma, because you've got, your cognitive behavioral therapy and your more regular sort of talk therapies. And kids would come to me and they say, look, I've been talking about this for 5 years with counselling. Nothing's really changed, which doesn't mean nothing's really changed, because even just to be held in that space for 5 years is worth a lot. Just to survive, just to feel heard, that is all worth a lot. So talk therapy, I'm definitely not saying it's not important, because it's super important.
True. Yeah.
I actually saw a therapist myself, and she was a practitioner of EMDR, which is sort of world gold standard trauma therapy, which was discovered accidentally by Francine Shapiro about 30 years ago.
Okay.
And she was walking through a forest, and she was like looking from side to side, and she noticed that this thing that she'd been stressing about, all of a sudden she wasn't stressed. And so what she discovered was that she started doing experiments with people. If they followed her fingers from side to side, they could bring a trauma to mind, and the distress would go right down.
EMDR, eye movement, what does it mean?
Eye movement, desensitization and reprocessing.
Okay.
So I decided I wanted to learn it, and I did. I've done level 1 and 2 over the last 12 months, and I've had the opportunity to practice it with quite a lot of different clientele, and just watch such incredible results. It's such a powerful, they call it a power tool, EMDR, because it processes trauma in what might take 20 or 30 sessions of psychotherapy. It can sort of recreate in 1 or 2 or 3 sessions. And I've
incredible.
Sort of that. So what it does is, again, we talked before about like the amygdala and the back of the brain. That's more sort of like the threat detecting part.
So that's the amygdala's back here, is it?
Amygdala is part of it. Yep.
Is that the reptilian brain?
I think that's
okay.
I always sort of forget.
Fight or flight, right? That's the reptilian. Yeah. Amygdala. Okay. Flight. Cool.
Yeah. Cool. So what some of the research has shown is that if that is switched on, then this switches off. They can't work at the same time. And then if your prefrontal cortex, your executive functioning and that sort of the brain is switched on, then that can't stay on. Only one of them can stay on at the same time.
And we want to be living here, because that's the power of humans today, right? We're able to think and problem solve and strategize our way through life.
They're both important, because we still need our instincts.
True.
And we need to know when we're not safe.
True.
But it's like the smoke detector that goes off when you burn the toast.
Yeah, exactly.
You don't want to be your smoke detector going off all the time just because you got some incense burning, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
it's a good way to explain it.
What's that?
That's a great way
Yeah,
to explain it.
yeah,
We need it, but not constantly
yeah.
on all the time because it'll,
Yeah, so
sort
when
of
you've sort of got
worry.
an anxiety like disorder, much as I don't like that word, it's the
Yep,
smoke detector going off all the time. Anxiety
got
is
it.
natural and normal, but it's when it's not actually in response to a real threat that
Got it.
it's going to make life really stressful. So what happens when with the eye movements is it sort of brings the working, it switches all this on, and then it switches off the panic and the distress and the threat, and the brain is able to process the event
Wow.
within a safe container with the therapist.
And doing it physically. So rather than just talking about it, and take me back to the time when you were, I've never been in personal therapy and I don't understand all of it, but like tell me about that time and blah, blah, let's talk about it psychologically. You're saying
Yeah,
physically using the eyes, which are connected to that prefrontal cortex, brings them back into that executive center rather than living in the fight or flight.
exactly. And
Incredible.
it's interesting because the therapist, a lot of the therapist's job is to actually stay out of the way. So you'll do like 30 seconds rounds, like so you'll bring the memory to mind. And sometimes also you can't just do this like with just anyone. You need to do preparation and make sure that
Yeah.
the client or the person can stay within their window of tolerance. So there's a lot of body knowledge around creating safety. And the first and most important stage of doing trauma therapy is creating safety.
Yeah, right. We've
So,
got to drop the guard as well and make sure that they're present with you, but also not make it worse.
yeah, so you don't want to be triggering people outside their window of tolerance.
Yeah.
And, if there's a lot of complex trauma, just finding safety and enough safety with the therapist and to contact that traumatic material, it might take, with some clients, 20 or 30 sessions of preparation. Whereas other people, if they've had a single incident trauma, they've seen a car accident, it was traumatic, we might do one session of preparation and then we can sort of process that trauma within one session.
And
So
it's done. The trauma's done in one session.
I mean, can be.
Can be. Yeah. Not for
And
everyone,
then,
but it's possible.
yeah. So, but the more complex the trauma, then the more work it's going to
The
take.
more layers it's going to be, how many years, and
Exactly.
how many trauma on trauma on trauma on trauma. You got to get through all that and understand that.
And EMDR also, what I love about it, it works with like when a trauma happens, you form a core belief. So I'm not safe, or I'm not enough.
Or men are this, or,
It could be that, but we always bring it back to the I am. So if men
Okay.
are this, what does that say about me? Okay,
Right.
that means I'm not safe, or
Right.
I'm not beautiful enough, or I'm not, whatever that core belief is. And so we see that when we process the trauma, three things happen. So one is distancing. So that memory that was so intense and vivid suddenly becomes tiny, or it was at nighttime and then all of a sudden the memory's in the daylight. Or this huge person in the memory has become this tiny person and you've become huge. It's really interesting, some of the ways that imagery changes spontaneously in the person who's processing. Desensitization is the second one. So a memory or like a traumatic experience that's still causing a lot of distress, say 10 out of 10 distress, that might go down to a 2 or a 1 or a 0 distress by the end of the processing session. And then the third thing is a cognitive shift. So that negative belief actually shifts into it wasn't my fault, or it's over now, or so it's quite.
That's the end of the trauma.
Yeah, well, it's processed.
NLP, neuro-linguistic programming, obviously very popular. Tony Robbins made it massive, but it's beyond that. It's huge. I've done it twice. I've done my prac twice. I really like the work. In that, it's very similar to what you're saying, at least my understanding of what you're saying. In NLP, we talk about which way somebody looks. Their eyes look in a different way. They're thinking about something, they're lying about something, they're processing something, and the eyes actually move in 4 quadrants in different ways. So what you're saying about the eyes, NLP is talking about the eye stuff as well. Is there any correlation between EMDR and NLP?
NLP, I haven't studied NLP myself, so I can't answer that question, but I can say that over the course of research with EMDR, it's the actual eye movement is not actually the sort of core engineering of it. That was just how she happened to find it. And then they looked at bilateral stimulation, because you can do it with like
sounds
going from ear to ear, or you can do it with tapping on side to side.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so it's not actually limited to the eyes.
Right.
But then even beyond that, the new research is also showing that it's also about the taxing of the working memory. So not to do with the eyes at all.
So give us an idea of how it works. I'm really fascinated by this. You take somebody, do you, this is a question, do you take somebody into the trauma? So they're in your session, you've got their bubble of safety, this is where we're at. Okay, boom, take me into the trauma. And then are they touching that and then coming into, like, my imagination is like they're pulling it out of there into here by doing these eye movements?
So what we're doing is, depending on what is safe for the client, if it's safe for them. So there's like the power tool EMDR, which is the full one, and then there's like the more and more watered down versions. So if it's too much for them to contact that full memory, we can, like, for example, go, okay, take that memory, now put it in a book on the shelf, on a whole encyclopedia of like your life and that particular memory. So you distance the memory already.
So they've got their eyes closed and you're guiding them through, okay, now put the memory into a book, take the book, put it, like that sort of stuff? Like they're imagining it?
That's an example of how you might do like a restricted form.
Okay. But because NLP does that as well. Like eyes closed and you're imagining things and you're seeing like move here and move there. Is that how it's working?
That's to do a more like a restricted contained version, so that it's not. But the full EMDR, just to simplify for today,
take us there. Yeah.
You'd bring the whole memory up. So you'd cue the client to bring in the memory and the image, the emotion that went with that image. It might be fear, it might be terror, it might be guilt, it might be whatever it is.
Yeah.
And then the negative belief, like what we talked about. So you bring those three things to mind, so you're fully activated then in the memory.
You're in it. Yeah. You're in the trauma right now.
You're in it. And then now follow my fingers.
Boom, 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 boom.
And then they follow the fingers for about 30 seconds. And then you say, and now what do you notice? And so then they say, oh, I'm noticing this. Okay, now follow my fingers, and then I'm noticing this. So it's
step by step, you do it.
So they're spontaneously, their brain's doing the work itself. It's so incredible to watch the enlightenment that you see people spontaneously sort of experience of their own accord. So sometimes if they get stuck, like if they're stuck processing, then the therapist needs to sort of step in and do what we call an interweave. So, okay, and do you think a child would have to protect themselves in that situation? Or you might just need to give a little bit of basically cognitive behavioral sort of input. But for the most part, it's a spontaneous processing.
It's almost like sorry, keep going.
No, it's all right.
Like you're creating a new pathway for them out of that. And step by step, you're like anchoring this. So because I'm very visual, I just imagine they're like stuck in here. Oh, I can't get out. Right. And it's like you're guiding them. Hey, you've got all of this cognitive function up here that's open.
Okay,
and you're like anchoring. It's like, hey, what about here? What do you notice? Oh, well, I noticed there was a red brick door there and I walked 3 steps down that path. Okay, cool. Let's do it again. Boom. What else did you notice? And it's like they're creating a map to get out of it and into the brighter future.
And because they're not this part's switched off and they're not in fear and they're not in too much distress, they can contact material enough to process it. Yeah,
beautiful. And again, because we're actually, that's why I was asking the question about, is it physically hardwired into the brain, into the neurocircuitry? Because if it is, we know how the brain works and the electricity in the brain, we can create new neural pathways. And so it sounds like you're taking them into that stuck place and then like burst the dam. Energy's going back into where we need it. Okay, cool. Retrace that. Let's wire it together. boom, let's do it again. Boom, let's do it again. Boom, let's do it. So when they go, if they are triggered, they're walking down the dark road, you know, the dark alley in the city, and all of a sudden they go into that trauma. You've wired now a new pathway, so they're not just stuck spinning in the trauma, but they're actually have a way out.
Totally. Yeah.
Oh God, that's amazing.
But it won't switch off the parts of the brain that that still, like, where there is an actual real threat.
But just the stuck energy of the trauma, right? Like that because as you said, it's like a physical thing. So you're actually helping to like that like stuck blood needs to flow again. It's like that stuck energy in the neural pathways needs to flow out of there again.
So then, like, you did ask, like, is that sort of like process it once and for all? And look, you might get someone down to like a zero distress and a high positive belief and a very distant memory, but it's still the next step is that person needs to integrate it into their life. So for example, you know, the client who can never sit with anyone behind them in the lunchroom in case they, you know, something happens, they need to go into that lunchroom and then practice actually breaking that down in real life. And there's like ways that you can practice doing that. It's called imagery rehearsal, where with the client you step them through every step of the way. I can now I'm orienting to time and place. So yeah, it's such a deep and comprehensive therapy. And like even with clients where I'm not doing the actual like processing, even just in the preparation and all the safety building and all that sort of thing, it's such a beautiful body of knowledge that you can really help people with. So
good on you. I love that it's physical, but it also has the imagery, because imagination is the tool that we create life from, right? So you're using the imagination, but you're tapping into the physical also. It's not just the talking and take me back there, now let's create a new story about it, but you're actually doing something physical to change the neural pathways. It's fascinating. So what are you noticing with the trauma work that you're doing? You've been doing this now for 7 years. Like, how many people are affected by trauma? How many people are stuck in this? Are you noticing? You said we weren't going to go deep into the COVID stuff, but what's happened over the last 2 years? People are talking about being in trauma. What are you noticing in this world that you're in? Because you're in it, we're not in it. Like, what does it look like on the inside of this industry?
Well, I mean, that said, I'm getting a very skewed version of what the world looks like, because I do deal with,
and we're interested in your version. Like what are you seeing?
Trauma. But you did say within the industry. I mean, people come to therapy because they're struggling with stuff. So and trauma is one of those words that's getting thrown around a lot on the internet and on social media, and it's probably been, and some might say it's been watered down a bit, but then like in EMDR, we do talk about like big T traumas, like major life traumas, and little T traumas, which can just be, I got teased in the playground when I was 5 and it stuck with me, sort of thing. So I personally think and the definition of trauma too is it's not the event, it's how it affected you. So 2 people can go through the same event and one becomes traumatized and the other one doesn't. So so I mean, with COVID, I would refer to that as like a collective trauma, or with the bushfires, that's again, like it's a collective trauma that everyone's sort of been through together. And so it's hard to sort of look, I feel like we've sort of returned to sort of regular normal-ish life, but everything's just a bit changed, and we've all been sort of
doesn't feel right.
A ringer a lot, or where I think there's a lot of exhaustion. I think burnout from all the changes that happen, from having to adapt, from the divisive nature of the politics of everything. I mean, we're obviously very resilient humankind. So people do bounce back, and over history, how many traumatic things have we gone through as a population, as a global population?
Exactly. It means a lot now, but 5 years later you sort of forget a lot of what happened now. And I remember I said to my dad when COVID just blew up, and I consider him quite a wise
man, wise spiritual man. I said, what do you think about all this, Dad? And he just said, this too will pass.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. You said that we were in like a collective trauma. I would dare say there's people that have had individualized trauma, like you're not wearing a mask and all of a sudden there's 3 people in the shopping center screaming at you that you're going to kill their grandmother, and you're like, holy fuck, I just don't want to wear the mask. Like, I got a medical exemption. I don't care if you got a medical exemption. You know, like there is actual people that have been traumatized through this too.
Yeah. And I think too, with something I noticed was like people who, speaking of medical trauma, people who, this was just one of my own observations, who had a lot of medical trauma.
Medical trauma? What do you mean, sorry?
That might be something to do with like an experience in a hospital that they had, or a surgery that they had, or an experience with a health professional that they had, or that someone close to them had. Then I think it was a lot of that sort of came up when they were presented with, you know, a lot of the things that came up during, you know, the height of the pandemic.
Yeah, true.
So what I noticed was that not everyone was receiving the information from an equal playing field. It was a lot more scary. And when I was mentioning before about the sense of threat, so some people just have a bigger sense of threat than others due to their past experiences, where other people have sort of grown up in relative safety and so didn't experience such a great sense of threat from things that were going on around them. Yeah. So, and then I also live right on the border between Queensland and New South Wales, and I was living in Queensland, working in New South Wales, and every other week they'd change the laws about whether you could cross the border, who could cross the border. People couldn't get to work, young people couldn't get to soccer practice. That was their only thing that was keeping them feeling all right. They couldn't get to a parent. Like it was a stressful time. You know, people in domestic violence situations were more stuck, like inside the home and couldn't get out, or people were leaving their jobs, so that you know, their mental health was declining. So yeah, it definitely had various levels of impact on different people, and I did get to see a lot of that from the inside and holding space for people through that time. And I also think that mental health professionals went through a lot through that time as well, because we were managing our own response to the pandemic and then also holding space for others. So it's been a big few years for health professionals. I mean, for everyone, but that's just another sort of group of people that have been impacted in a certain way. Yeah.
Was there a massive increase in that? Because you were working at Headspace at the time during that. Was there a big increase? Were you mostly with youth or adults back then?
So that's a youth organisation.
Youth, okay.
Yeah, 12 to 25. So we actually, in some ways, it got quieter because people couldn't access it, or they were stuck at home, or people weren't at school. People weren't going to school, so they weren't getting referred into by their teachers. But in some ways, all those referral pathways sort of broke down.
When they need it most, they can't get access to it. That's crazy.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
And then I think Aboriginal communities were also affected, so they were sort of, again, more isolated. And
they were all locked down,
likely to come in to access the service. So again, you know, different groups of people being impacted in different and varying amounts. Yeah,
crazy, absolutely crazy. You're working now with an NGO in domestic violence as well.
Yeah.
What's that work about?
That's a whole nother conversation.
So that's trauma related as well?
So I'm a specialist trauma counsellor for that organisation as well. So I'm working with a lot of people with historical trauma of family and domestic violence, and seeing the way that that's sort of coming up in their current life, even if they're not currently even living in a violent situation, the way that history is still impacting them. And then sometimes I'm talking to people who are currently like trying to leave, or, you know, or have just left a situation of family and domestic violence. So
okay, well, let's dive into that. Let's keep it on the trauma thing. I want to give you the mic. You've got your mic, but guide us. Tell us, like, what do we need to know about this trauma? Like, we've dived into a lot of questions. I'm just very curious. I've got a lot of questions, and we've sort of dived into a lot of the details as well. But what should people know about trauma specifically, and like things that we need to watch for, things that we can do. It's not all just PTSD, right? Where there's a big event. Can it be like lingering trauma that then has a small trigger that then blows into something like?
Yeah, totally. What do we need to know? I mean, we just need to know ourselves, really.
Yeah, I love that. At the end of the day, it's what it comes down to. Know thyself.
Yeah. And I think, you know, I also think it's important not to over pathologize ourselves or others. And it's one thing I love about being a social worker by profession is that we're very well versed in diagnosis and you know, the DSM-5 and all that sort of thing, but they're constructs, you know. So if we over identify, you know, with sort of definitions and pathologies, that, you know, can be its own sort of pathology. So I think just, you know, knowing
that's huge, by the way. Thank you so much for saying that. From someone that's clinically trained, I was just picturing back, like, this woman is so intelligent, like studied law back there, now has a master's in social work, you know, just so articulate. But you're saying don't over pathologize, like don't put the labels, don't define so much that you get trapped in a box that you can't do anything about it. It's incredible that you've said that. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. You're welcome. That said, diagnosis can really help people understand what they're going. Yeah. So it's a beautiful balance.
Yes.
And the best definition.
Don't let it become your identity so much that you're trapped in it and you can't change it. Allow it to support you, but not chain you.
Yeah, I mean, don't is a strong word, because if identifying with it, if that works for you, and if that, you know, if that becomes an identity for you that you choose to identify with, then, you know, go for it. If that's working for you, you know, people. If it helps you, yeah. If it helps you, as long as it's helpful. So Gabor Mate wrote, I only have just discovered this book. He wrote, who recently released a movie. It got quite.
That was huge. Yeah. I think it was called Trauma, was it?
Wisdom of Trauma. So
Wisdom of Trauma, yeah.
He's a physician, and he was working with homeless people on the streets and in addiction. And he just learned so much about, and, you know, like there's that, sorry, I could go on and on and on now, but there, you know, there's studies showing, I have no idea how long we've been talking or how
Doesn't
long
matter.
But there's studies showing a very famous study called the Adverse Childhood Experience Study. A lot of people have heard about it. ACEs showed that people with more childhood trauma, if they ticked 5 or 6 out of these 10 sub things that can happen to you as a kid, then they're X% more likely to have chronic illness, to have 20 years shorter lifespan. So a direct link was shown between adverse child experiences, including like parents divorcing or a parent abusing a drug or alcohol, or I won't go more into detail, but and then that's correlated with ongoing chronic sort of health issues. So the way that trauma, which again, you know, shows what is the difference between body and mind, because we're talking about a heart condition.
Oh, it's going to manifest for sure. You know what I mean? It's all one at the end of the day. It's all one.
Yeah, so that's sort of where I'm going with that. But coming back to Gabor Mate, he wrote this book like 20 years ago, I think. He has ADHD, and his two kids have ADHD. And ADHD was something I haven't really understood, but I was seeing more and more clients come to me with this diagnosis. And I was like, I need to learn more about this, because, you know, why am I seeing such a high incidence of this? And again, I think it's like coming to therapy because they're struggling with stuff. And once I really understood by reading this book sort of exactly what it means to live with this diagnosis, which again, it's just a collection of symptoms that we can put together and go, this is sort of what these people have in common. Where was I going with that?
Well, I got a point on that is in NLP. I keep referring to NLP because it's what I know in NLP, and Tony says a lot. I've done all of Tony's work for a long time. If you can give a dog a name, you can call it and teach it to come. So it's like Yeah, when you can identify it, then it's there, then you can do
Yeah,
something with it, you know. But
yeah,
once it's just these weird symptoms, I don't know what to do with it. But as soon as I can give the dog a name and call it, I can do something.
yeah, beautiful. Yeah.
Mm.
You know, even I even get that from like numerology and astrology. It's like, okay, like I'm
Oh,
like
that's
this.
what I'm going through.
Yeah, because I'm a
Now it
Gemini.
makes
So
sense.
that's why I'm constantly scattered all the time, or, you know,
Yeah.
like,
Oh, Pisces,
um,
that's why I'm so emotional all the
yeah,
time.
exactly right, exactly right. So to me, and that's a very Gemini trait, is to like be constantly searching for information, because I love information.
Mm.
So it's sort of like piecing together the pieces of the puzzle, and the more that we can understand ourselves and what we're going through. And another thing about social work is that we work with person in environment. So there's the inner world of the person, which is always going to be impacted by their environment.
Yeah,
And that's the
right.
political environment, their family environment. You know, it's going to be impacted by privilege, oppression, by race, gender, able-bodiedness, all those sorts of things.
So
So,
they're not an island. You're taking into account everything that's going on and working holistically to support them. Makes
yeah,
sense.
yeah.
Yeah, cool. Makes sense. So what
Um,
is the work that you're doing now? You've now left Headspace, it sounds like, and you're in your private practice. You've got one foot in the door with the NGO with the domestic violence, but so you're doing the therapy. IMDR? Did I get it right?
EMDR.
Of course. Could be caught I. EMDR. And obviously everything that you've done with the social work and with your masters, like you've been doing this for a very long time. So what is the work that you're doing for people? Is it specifically around trauma? Is it trauma, depression, PTSD? Like what is it that you're doing now?
Really, it's whoever comes to me at
Yeah.
this point, and which seems to be at the moment very word of mouth. Like,
Yep.
most of my referrals are coming through other people who know me. So, yeah, I'm still, you know, working with a lot of trauma. I'm working with clients with ADHD. I'm working with, you know, a lot of sort of relationship issues,
Mm.
because relationships, are so core to our well-being.
Hmm.
And so, you know, often when we're struggling in our relationships, it's going to reflect, you know, our own struggles. Again, we're not
Yeah.
islands.
Yeah.
So yeah, and it's been good expanding from sort of like specializing in young people into seeing a more broader, age range. So
Mm.
yeah, it's sort of, yeah, I worked at a university, for about 6 months at the beginning of this year, end of last year, and got to see students from all around the world. That
Wow.
was super interesting, and a lot of them were in lockdown, so I was doing Zooms with them. They were in lockdown in different countries, so hearing different stories of like people in India, people locked down in Indonesia, people, you know, so it was just from that sense I got to see how the pandemic was impacting, people, and also working with young people in that stage. So we left school and we went like, I'm going traveling for a year. They
Yeah, for
never got
sure.
that.
No.
They didn't even get to go for like, they didn't even, their first year of uni was like at home sitting on the computer.
Jesus.
So I saw like the fallout of the social anxiety that sort of grew from just people not practicing going out.
Yeah.
So because they've been stuck inside for so long, all of a sudden going to uni was a really big deal, or making it to
Mm.
class was like a massive deal. So things like that, I
Mm.
think, have, we were a bit older during that time, so we'd sort of hit all our milestones, but
Yeah, the young ones are affected
young
most.
ones got hit pretty hard.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. We're going to come slowly to a precipice here, but you mentioned something before that I think was really, really beautiful about, I call it know thyself, right? Like I said, what is the something that we need to do most? What do we need to do? Like, what does that look like for you? You're specializing in mental health. You've dedicated your life to helping people through trauma, through depression, through now you're working with domestic violence, like all of these traumatic experiences. But I know deep down the work that you do on yourself. what does it look like for people? Like, let's take it from, okay, if you guys, and here it is, if you need help, connect with Claire. Right? I cannot recommend this woman more than anybody else out there. Well, I have to, she's the best. Like, I know Claire is amazing. So if you are recognizing that you have PTSD, you have trauma, you have stuff coming up in your relationships, maybe you've got young ones, maybe you've got kids, it's 6 years with Headspace, you know, worked at the university, specializing in young ones. If you need help, please connect with Claire. Claire's details in the description of this, but you can search Claire Cottone. It'll be in the description there as well. On Facebook, do you have a website yet?
Yes, clairecottone.com.
All right, cool. You broke up a little there, but Claire, yeah, just a touch, but Claire,
clairecottone.com.
ClaireCottone.com. So ClaireCottone, Claire Cottone. Got the Cottone. I always love that name. And your dad is a champion. Your mum's beautiful too. ClaireCottone.com. If you need support, please reach out. If you're in a space where you need someone that is strong, sharp as a tack, cares, beautiful heart, Claire will support you.
Oh, thanks, Scotty.
You know it's all true, and you're very welcome. But also to everybody that's listening, my job is to help guide you. I am a guide. That's what I do. So I'm guiding you to the good ones. Claire's one of the best. Okay, Claire's one of the best. So in saying that now, if you have that, please connect with Claire. But Claire, guide us for everybody. What do we need to do to have optimal mental health, to live an incredible life? You know, knowing thyself. What do you recommend for people?
I think it looks different for everyone.
Can never be a simple answer with you. You just got so much going on up there. I love that. Everyone else gives the 5-step plan. You're like, well, no, actually, let's take a look at this.
It's never the same. I mean, for me, it's yoga. For me, it's yoga and morning pages, and you know, the beach, and but not everyone's into that.
Morning pages. So that's your journaling in the morning.
Yeah. Living near the beach and being able to get into nature.
Yeah.
And creative expression, so music or whatever that looks like. But I mean, the basics for people, the absolute basics of good mental health: adequate sleep, in line with your circadian rhythms. So sleeping when it's dark, waking when it's light.
Beautiful. Exercise,
adequate exercise, moving the body, decent diet, and then relationships. They're the cornerstones of good mental health. And number 5 is like, get support when you need it. I haven't got here on my own. I've accessed so much support and continue to access support along the way, because we're not built to manage everything on our own. We're built to support each other and live as a network and learn from others. So exactly. Ask for support.
Ask for support. The relationships piece is an interesting one. So does that mean like just having good relationships, like friends around or family around or people that you can connect with, so don't be isolated?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's like, that's a whole sort of probably another piece, but you know, as tiny babies, you know, it's shown that if a baby doesn't get like interaction from their parent or mirroring from their parent, they can actually get quite sick. So we're built to relate with other people, and when we become too shut down and isolated, then we're sort of missing out on a whole, like, we heal through relationship, we're hurt through relationship, and we heal through relationship. So and
we need it for life, like you're saying. That I know that research, these babies will die if they're not touched. If nobody connects with them, they'll actually die. And even like, doesn't have to be touch, but even that emotional touch of being there, present with them, is so important. I talk a lot about the brain, you know, the neurons in the brain and how they have to fire together. And if they don't, they slowly die. They're not being used. They die out. Right. We're the same, because we're the neurons of Gaia, of the planet. And so we have to fire together. We have to send electrical currents between each other, relationships.
Yeah.
I love it.
So that's probably my 5 tips for mental health.
Love it. Yeah, love it. And I love your personal one. So the morning pages, journaling is so special. Guys, if you haven't tried journaling or you aren't journaling, I type. I Evernote and I just type it. I'm a faster typer than I'm a writer, always a terrible writer. But whether you're writing or you're typing or whatever you need to do, some way that you can express yourself to yourself. That's really powerful, that you can just have that conversation with you. You can get that stuff off your chest. So it's not just, sometimes we don't even know what's going on inside us, ourselves. But when we can express it and we can write about it, nobody's going to read it. I'm not putting it on the internet. My partner's not having a look inside the diary. It's mine. It's just a conversation with me. So much healing can happen inside of those morning pages, as you called it. So I'd agree that that's really powerful.
Yeah. Yeah. And yoga's been a massive part of my healing and healing journey. And it's a physical exercise, but it's also spiritually and psychologically supportive as well, because it gets us into the parasympathetic nervous state. And yeah, I find it just really helps me unpack all the stuff that again gets caught in the body. So you move the body and you release, you know, the emotions and the thoughts and all the things that are in the body, and using the breath. So
no, yoga is very, very powerful. I'd be really into lifting weights as well, which is something sort of I've done on. Sorry, that's your next step. Yeah, cool. I really like it, like full core, full compound movements. So squats, bench press, deadlifts, chin ups, rows, like just big. I don't do any of the like isolating movements, but like big compound movements. And I feel really good doing them.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Cool.
A lot of clarity. Maybe it's a man thing as well, because I did yoga for years. You know, like you and I used to do yoga together. I'm a yoga instructor. I trained in the Himalaya. I love yoga, but I don't know. Recently, it's been more like I still do my yoga, but like getting into the weights as well. It's been really powerful.
Yeah.
Something worth trying.
Yeah, that's my next step. Yeah, I actually went to the gym today just to check it out. It's a scary new world. Yeah, it doesn't feel like me, but yeah, we'll see where that goes.
See how it goes. Anything you want to leave us with?
Just yeah, it's a lifelong journey. I think the journey of loving yourself and getting to know yourself, and we're constantly evolving. I called my business transformational counseling because, you know, we're changing every day. We're constantly transforming. The world's transforming around us. And we can make new choices, even if they're just tiny choices every day that lead us more towards who we truly are and how we want to be and how we want to live. And just remembering that, yeah, not everyone has an equal starting point. So, you know, a successful one person, maybe a small success, you know, it's really important not to compare to others. And just to be where you're at and just, you know, do your best with what you have, really. Yeah.
God, you're a beautiful person. The first thing when you started saying that is like the journey of loving yourself. And straight away I was thinking, here's a clinical therapist, trained clinician, who in my mind is about fixing things that are broken. Oh, you got trauma. There's a bit of break there. Let's fix that broken thing. No. You're like way over there on the other side. It's like loving yourself, transformation. Oh, you're there. That's okay. It's just a couple extra steps because we didn't all start at the same place, but the end goal is the same.
Oh, beautiful. I love the way.
Just a reflection to you. Like, thank you for holding that vision of what life is all about. You're not meeting people saying, oh, you're a bit fucked up. Come over to the trauma therapist and I'll fix you. And I think that's like, maybe it's just a stigma that I hold, but I think it's a stigma, and maybe it's in that world is like, but you're straight away the journey of loving yourself, and you know, thank you for holding that light for people.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. It's my honor. I love my work, and I love all the people who come to me. Yeah, genuinely feel very lucky to be in this space. Yeah.
You're a guide, same as I. You're guiding them to the journey that you're on. It just shows like who you are. You know, that's the journey that you live, and you're saying to others, hey, take my hand, come with me. It's okay. I've got all of these skills to support you. I've done all of this study for years and years and years. Here you go. Take my hand. I can help you get there too.
Remember, they're the experts in their life, though. I'm just a facilitator.
Love that. Yes. You're empowering them, not disempowering. Of course.
Yeah. So it's really got nothing to do with me.
Oh, I love the humility. It's true. A true leader at the end of the day is forgotten, and the people feel as if they did it themselves. That's true leadership.
They have to do it themselves.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Claire Cottone, you're a beautiful human being. Thank you so much. Yeah, thanks for sure.
What you do.
Yeah, I'm doing my best.
Shining a light.
Thank you. I'm so cold right now. Like it's -12, and actually sitting up in my office, I need to turn the heaters up. I can feel like I'm fidgety. I'm like, man, it's freezing. It just went really cold here. So, but thank you, Claire. Guys, as we shared a moment ago, please head over to clairecottone.com. I will tag everything in the show notes. If you're catching this on YouTube, on Facebook, on your podcast, head over to scottyze.com and I'll have the link for Claire in there as well. And we'll put some more information about EMDR that people can go and learn about. Have you got stuff on your website about EMDR?
Yeah, stuff on the website.
Perfect.
Yeah.
I think we'll head to clairecottone.com. But Claire, thank you so much. I love you. You're a beautiful human being. You truly are. I'm so grateful to have you in my life. And ladies and gents, Awaken Freedom. Isn't this a journey that we're all on?
So good.
That's the name of the podcast, Awaken Freedom.
I love it.
It's why we're here.
One of my core values is freedom.
Exactly. Yeah. Freedom is my number one. And we are in the time of awakening. And what are we awakening? Yeah. We're awakening love. We're awakening freedom. Yeah. You know, freedom is love. Love is freedom. They're one and the same. And we're at this time of awakening freedom. So thanks for joining us on this.
Beautiful vision.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for joining us on this vision. Love you guys, and we'll see you soon.